What's up guys, this is VinylicPuma, back with another Fallout 76 beta video, and I've been lurking around on the internet these past couple of days, checking out people's reactions and opinions on the game so far, and a common theme I've seen is that a number of people are wondering if Fallout 76 is any good or not. After all, and if you look around online at the beta's reception, you've got a lot of people that genuinely do seem to like Fallout 76. You've got people that hate Fallout 76 with a passion, and then you've got people that seem to fall somewhere in between liking and hating the game. Now, I can understand a lot of the confusion, as I even think that based on my own experiences with the game, and I'm actually somebody that's played the beta for about 8 hours now, that I'm sort of wondering if the game is going to be any good. On the one hand, there are definitely things that I like about Fallout 76, as I do like how the game plays like an easier version of Fallout 4's survival mode, and shares a lot of gameplay elements with Fallout 4. On the other hand, I'm not crazy about the online, and I definitely don't like Fallout 76's event missions. The NPC quest givers seem kind of uninspired to me, and I find the story itself difficult to follow and not especially engaging at times. So I suppose you could say that I fit in that third category that I mentioned earlier, where I sort of like and hate Fallout 76. With that in mind, I think that allows me to look at the game a little more objectively than the former two camps, and in this video, I will attempt to answer the question of whether Fallout 76 is going to be worth it, if the game is going to be any good, or if it is utter trash that should be avoided at all costs. However, before we jump into this subject, I'd like to talk about why you're seeing a mixed consensus about Fallout 76 online, and how a lot of that has to do with the nature of the Fallout 76 beta itself, as well as the controversy that has surrounded Fallout 76 since its reveal at E3 earlier this year. I think it's fair to say that Bethesda has been very strategic in how they've decided to let players disseminate information about Fallout 76. After all, you have to pre-order to get into the beta, and on top of that, to get the best chance of getting your beta key, you have to digitally pre-order Fallout 76 through the Xbox Live Marketplace, the PlayStation Store, or on Bethesda.net for the PC. So we're not getting an open beta for Fallout 76 to where you can just hear anyone and everyone's opinion on the game, and on top of that, you have to essentially buy the game in order to get access to the beta. While other companies like Activision do similar things with games like Call of Duty, where you have to pre-order in order to access parts of the game, this creates a situation where you're only getting opinions from a very select group of people that I suppose you could say are somewhat invested in a particular game's success. I don't think this necessarily compromises these people's opinions, but there is an idea in marketing where when someone pays for something rather than receiving it for free, the person tends to value that product more despite that product's potential flaws. And what I think you're seeing to some degree with a lot of the critiques of the Fallout 76 beta is that many people that bought in are a little more willing to defend the game rather than someone that's looking in from the outside. And I think this is really why you're seeing a combination of really positive versus very harsh criticisms, and you also see a lot of criticisms that fit in between. On top of that, Bethesda has restricted the amount of time beta participants have had to experience the game. Most of the opinions and impressions of Fallout 76 that you're seeing across the internet are based on 4 to 2 hour increments of playtime, to where you're never really able to sink your teeth into the game and get a really good idea of what all of the mechanics are and how things work. Thus, it's difficult to get an impression of how long Fallout 76, and speaking for myself, I didn't even realize what something like atoms were, which are apparently Fallout 76's currency that's used to purchase microtransaction cosmetics. So even though I've spent a lot of time with the game so far and reached level 12 on the Xbox version, it's kind of difficult for me, and I would say many other people online, to give a very precise and definitive viewpoint of the game. After all, what we could be experiencing in the beta could end up being very different from how the game is when it actually releases. And as a great example, and as far as I'm aware, the Atoms microtransaction system hasn't been implemented into the game yet, and could greatly affect the game once it has been implemented. It's also possible that Fallout 76 might just not have that much content, and rather than being like a 100-hour game like Fallout 4 or Skyrim, it's actually a 30-hour game that doesn't really have a whole lot of replay value. Ultimately, no one really has a concise viewpoint of the game yet due to the limited availability of the beta periods, where if someone was able to play and reach Fallout 76's endgame, then they would have a better idea of what Fallout 76 is really like. There's also the latter issue, and that is all of the controversy that has surrounded this game since its E3 reveal. A lot of the more negative opinions we're seeing about the Fallout 76 beta and the game in general are fueled by the game's numerous controversies. Speaking for myself, I'm still a little bit sour at the fact that Fallout 76 is not a New Vegas-style spin-off and is a multiplayer game, especially when most of my time with the beta so far has been spent by myself rather than questing or playing with others, which makes me question whether the multiplayer aspect of the game should have been mandatory and or required in the first place. There's also some of the controversy surrounding a lack of NPCs, and while there are NPCs in Fallout 76 through the form of mostly faceless quest givers, I think it's fair to say that many people are still upset at the lack of quality NPCs, like maybe Piper and Nick Valentine from Fallout 4, or even just interesting and quirky NPCs from the older Bethesda Game Studios games, like Cicero from Skyrim. Whether you like or don't like what you've played of the Fallout 76 beta so far, you can't deny that Fallout 76 would have been a better game if it had NPCs of the quality that we've seen from Bethesda Game Studios in the past. Add on the questionable retcons to the Fallout lore these past couple of years, whether it be things like Jets, Exo-1 armor, ghouls, or the most recent controversy that blew up surrounding the Brotherhood of Steel, and I also think it's fair to say that these issues are also coloring people's opinions of the Fallout 76 beta. Thus, you get a situation where, even among people that bought into the beta, people are overall more critical and willing to put out their more negative opinions of the game than they potentially would have otherwise. So at this point, or with all of this in mind, I think it should probably be easier to understand why you're not really seeing a definitive answer as to whether you should pick up Fallout 76 or not. However, what I can say is this, and hopefully this will help you come to some kind of decision. Fallout 76 suffers from what I would like to call DESTINY-ITIS. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that Fallout 76 is or plays like Destiny necessarily, but it suffers from a somewhat unique aspect that Destiny also suffers from, where the game itself can be fun to play and potentially even enjoyable, but it is something that isn't necessarily for everyone and or it lacks a lot of the core reasons that someone might play a video game for, or more specifically, a Fallout game for. If you really think about what Destiny does well, I think it's fair to say that Destiny's approach to the looter-shooter genre is pretty nice, and it certainly has its fair share of fans. And it's also worth mentioning that Bungie has been known, really since the Halo days, for making a good playing FPS game with a nice feel to it. On the other hand, Destiny does a lot of other things poorly, like how the stories for the game suck, players are locked out of content that they paid for, and the lore is in Grimmer cards, which don't even appear in the game, and you have to go online to another website in order to figure out any of the lore. With these things in mind, if you were to ask somebody if Destiny was a good game, you would probably get a few yeses and nos here and there, depending on the player's level of investment. After all, someone that's not into looter shooters probably hated Destiny the minute they booted it up, while another hated Destiny for its lousy story. On the other hand, another person may have really liked Destiny due to how it was a great playing FPS game, as well as for some of its looter shooter inspired mechanics. The same thing, or I guess phenomena, can be observed in Fallout 76. From my experience, and if you're someone that likes Fallout 4, there's a good chance that you could end up liking Fallout 76. After all, the shooting and combat mechanics are pretty similar, if not identical to what appears in Fallout 4, and if you like that style of gameplay, you may end up liking Fallout 76. Granted, there certainly are differences, as weapons and gear have level restrictions in 76, and you also have to deal with some other additional mechanics like disease, hunger, and thirst, but for the most part, the gameplay feels pretty similar to Fallout 4, and with that in mind, if you like Fallout 4, you may want to pick up Fallout 76 yourself and try it because you may find that you are pleasantly surprised. Granted, I don't think I could say that Fallout 76 is better than Fallout 4 or any of the previous entries in the Fallout franchise, but I do think that I could say that Fallout 76 wasn't as awful as I thought it was going to be, and if you are somebody that likes how Fallout 4 plays, you could end up liking Fallout 76. At the same time, if you're someone that plays the Fallout games for the story or the NPCs that you can potentially meet, you are definitely not going to find those here. While it's true 76 does have quest givers and you can encounter a few personalities as you play through the game, you're not going to be encountering very many, if any, interesting NPCs. Plus, the story is a lot less focused this time around, so if you are looking for an engaging narrative with choices like we saw in New Vegas, you are definitely not going to find that in this game. Also, if you're someone that likes playing Fallout or Bethesda's games for the great mod support they get at launch, I think it's fair to say that you're going to be pretty disappointed with 76. Fallout 76 isn't going to get an unofficial patch that fixes bugs at launch, nor is it going to have hilarious Thomas the Tank Engine mods or anything else like that. Granted, mod support is coming, but it's supposedly not coming until November 2019 at the latest, and we don't really know how sophisticated the game's mod support is going to be due to the game's always online DRM nature, as well as the presence of microtransactions, so who knows what's going to happen. So I would say if modding is a reason that you play Bethesda's games, and more specifically Bethesda's Fallout games, then I think you're going to be disappointed in that department as well. I guess where I'm going with all of this is that, like Destiny, I think Fallout 76 is going to have its fans, but I also think it's going to be an abrupt turnoff for most people and potentially even many legacy fans of the series. After all, the best parts of the franchise so far have been the crazy mods people have put out, as well as some of the weird and wacky quests, NPCs, and situations that the player is presented with, and without these things, I could easily see a lot of people skipping out on 76. So with everything in mind that I've talked about in this video, and I think if you're still wondering if Fallout 76 is any good or not, the question I would ask you is this, and that is, what is the reason that you play Fallout? If you play Fallout because you think it's fun and you enjoyed Fallout 4, you could end up liking Fallout 76. Fallout 76's world design is fairly interesting, the guns are kind of neat, and I find the combat enjoyable when the game isn't lagging out. I do have questions as to how long the game is, and I also have concerns about the game's endgame, but I suppose we aren't going to really know any of that until the game finally launches. Alternatively, if you're someone that plays for the story, the wacky NPCs you meet, some of the weird quests you can embark on, or if you're someone that likes to design and experience mods, you're not going to find that here at this game's launch. Maybe things will change after Fallout 76's launch, but it's unclear to what extent or even if those things will come to fruition. Keep in mind, too, that I haven't really talked about any of the technical issues with the lag, frame rate, and other things that are present in 76 either. Now, I suppose it's totally possible that these things are going to be fixed at launch and the beta is just an older build of the game, but I do think that the technical issues are worthy to talk about and will definitely be something I'll be complaining about in various videos if they don't get this fixed before or after release. At the end of the day, guys, it's ultimately up to you what you want to think about this game, but if you do want my recommendation, I would recommend you wait and see what some of your favorite game reviewers, streamers, YouTubers, and whoever else you watch online think of the game once they're really able to finally sink their teeth into it. Not to mention that we still have entire other platforms beyond the Xbox version of Fallout 76, and it's possible that the PC version could be way better from a technical perspective, where we're not encountering so many frame rate drops, as well as issues with some bugs here and there. Ultimately, and as my final verdict, if you haven't bought the game yet and you're on the fence, I would recommend you wait until the game has finally been released and we've seen all of the gameplay from all of the various versions. Otherwise, guys, I think that's going to wrap up this particular video. I hope this video helped you if you're still on the fence as to whether you want to purchase this game or not. I do think there's a good chance that some people may end up liking Fallout 76, while others are really turned off by the significant streamlining and removal of core features that the series is known for. particularly when it comes to NPCs, the game's story, and some of the weird side quests you can embark on, as well as that mod support. In the meantime, and before this game releases, I'll continue to give you guys some of my opinions on what I've experienced so far. But as always, feel free to like this video if you liked it, click the bell so you can be notified when I upload more videos, and as always, thank you all so much for supporting this channel. Take care, and I'll see you all in the next one.